Charlie Kirk is with us. Charlie, you think that?
Glenn, great to see you.
Good to see you.
It's phenomenal. First of all, it breaks things into separate votes. That's the first ask. Enough of these omnibuses. It is the oldest trick in Washington, D.C. Put things that are essential with things that are terrible.
Yes.
And then you bind these congressmen that are in tough districts. They say, I vote for this thing because it had all this veteran stuff that I like, and 90% of it was garbage.
Yes.
And so if you break it into separate bills, then you can actually say, okay, farmer aid, disaster aid, fine. Do that separately. You know why they don't like doing that? They actually wanted to go home this weekend for Christmas break. It is as simple as that, is that there is a lifestyle component to our legislative process. And when I first learned that, I said, wait a second, we have nurses, EMTs, we have people on 24 call that are working Christmas Eve and Christmas all through New Year's that are making the country run. Our members of Congress can work through Christmas to go do 12 or 15 separate votes. It's not that hard. In fact, the stewardship of the country is far more important than your Christmas vacation.
Yes. And, they're working for the people.
Allegedly.
And allegedly. That's what they're supposed to be doing. I gave up a day of my vacation to be here. I'm on
You're with all these wonderful patriots.
I know.
Look at all these great people
and it's
here.
because everybody here is most likely doing the same thing, taking some vacation time to be here because it's important. It's really important.
Yeah, and it's just a phenomenal event here, and glory be to God. And we always
hang on just a second. Glory be to God, yes, but God needs actual physical hands on earth. And you have been. This is your thing. Turning Point is you.
It's our thing. As an organization.
Blah, 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 blah. It took a leader to lead it, and you deserve a lot of credit for the win, and all the credit. Well, no, not all the credit, but most of the credit for this because it was your baby.
Thank you, Glenn. That's very touching, and you know this, and I'll throw it back at you. You've been an instrumental piece in my worldvie formation.
Okay. So
he won't accept it. So I got to get better at receiving compliments.
I've heard you, and it's really great, and I'm grateful that we have a good relationship, and we've helped each other out. But let's talk about what we're facing January 20th, because I am for the spending cuts. I am against raising the debt limit, but if I were in Congress, I would have done it this time because I want to give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt. I think he deserves it. He's earned it, and I find it credible. He's not a debt guy, but Elon Musk is, and Trump knows, along with Elon Musk, we got to grow the economy, but we also have to cut it down, and I'll give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt because if he doesn't cut the size of government dramatically, he doesn't stand a chance.
He must shrink the size of the state. A couple things. Number one, on this legislative back and forth, is that President Trump wants a clean slate. What does that mean? He does not want to inherit all of the problems of this dysfunctional Congress, and he has to go clean this up, and his agenda that he ran on, that people voted for, would be thwarted. So he wants a clean slate. He also doesn't want Schumer to have him over a barrel with debt ceiling unnecessarily. What President Trump has done, and this is what will happen January 20th through DOGE, is that the executive branch is going to ask a fundamental constitutional question, and it's going to go up to the Supreme Court very quickly, which is, does the executive branch have to spend all the money that Congress sends it? This is around the idea of the Impoundment Act. And it's a very interesting constitutional question. It says, of course, that the Congress controls the purse, the House of Representatives. All spending bills meant to originate in the House. But it's not clear whether the executive branch has to spend all of that money if they can do the duties that Congress ascribes to them for less money. So if DOGE is able to say, hey, we're able to do this for half the cost, why can't they just send a wire back to Congress or say, no, we actually don't need it? And that constitutional executive tension theoretically could result in hundreds of billions of dollars of cost savings. And that is centered around, Russ Vought has talked about this from Office of Management and Budget, who's 10 out of 10, he's spectacular. Is the Impoundment Act and then also the Presidential Reorganization Act. I think that's a really healthy debate because our founders never wanted legislative supremacy. You know this. They wanted co-equal branches. And we're living under this idea that Congress can just bully the executive branch of what to do with spending. You must spend it. In fact, Glenn, you've covered the horror stories of cabinet officials and agency secretaries that have to spend the money. Like right now what's happening is they're finding things to spend money on because their money's going to run out. And if you don't spend it, then you lose it the next time. There's no reward for saving it, and they'll say, well, even if we don't spend it, it has to be sent to another agency. No, that's not correct. What if every agency says, try to do this for 70% of the cost or half of the cost? And you're talking about a $6 trillion beast. The ask is very simple. Can we go back to pre-COVID spending? Can we go back to 2019 spending? When we do that, we have a $500 billion surplus, just back to pre-COVID spending levels. And so the way that we shrink the size of government and the state is going to be done in a different way, because typically it's like, well, you must immediately get congressional buy-in.
Right.
The executive branch has a co-equal role
Right.
in identifying and potentially even saving money that Congress was forcing them once to
And
spend.
the Democrats are taking everything to court. How long before Donald Trump just starts to shut parts of the government down? Because
I can't speak on his behalf, but I can say, though, that this Impoundment Act question will probably be heard this summer or sometime soon. And if it comes back the way it should, which is this question, again, Hamilton and Madison and Jay, who were obviously the designers of and explainers of the U.S. Constitution, they wanted spirited tension between the branches. They wanted collision. They wanted the branches to kind of, not to be at war with each other, but to have different opinions on how governing should. This idea that the executive branch must bend a knee because Congress has
Right.
appropriated the money. And so, look, in addition to that, is if we can get, this is where the other thing is that I was pushing for, and I don't think it's going to happen, is if we can reauthorize the Presidential Reorganization Act, which has been authorized many times, which essentially says if an agency can do the work that is duplicative of another agency,
Yes.
it no longer needs to exist. So let's just take the Department of Education, which needs to end. The Department of Education needs to be shut down. Do you guys agree? End the Department of Education.
so do you believe Linda McMahon, because she's a great manager,
She's phenomenal.
is she a manage to the close?
She shares the president's stated plan to close the Department of Education, but let's just take 3 examples of how that can happen before you
Yeah.
close it. Student loans. That should be under the Department of Treasury. Put that under Treasury. There's no reason it should be there.
Wait. Why do we have it?
No,
that was the problem.
I agree. That's going to require Congress. Like that's
Okay.
what I'm getting at, though,
Yeah,
is
okay.
at least you can break apart.
Yes,
I
okay,
agree. We should
yeah.
get rid of any subsidized student loans.
Yes.
I'm just getting at, this is the way that you can actually weaken an agency to no longer exist.
Yes.
Through duplicative type processes.
Right.
School assisted lunch. You can make an argument for it or against it. But school assisted lunch, basically, that the taxpayers need to, pay for lunch. That could be under Department of Agriculture. They do food stamps. Much better done. And then finally, they have this whole separate office of the Department of Education that is Senate-confirmed Tier 2 position that is the Office of Civil Rights. Put that under the Department of Justice. They don't need your own civil rights division in the Department of Education that goes and harasses our Christian schools and goes after conservative kids. So you can completely close that. That's 3 functions. All of a sudden, the Department of Education inherently weakens. And you know this, Glenn. The Department of Education actually never existed. It used to be called HEW,
Yep.
Health, Education, and Welfare.
Yep.
And in fact, we could re-merge these together, and then we could find duplicative type processes and better synergies. That is even before we get more to the fundamental question, of which I have and you have. I don't think the Department of Education is constitutional. I do not think that in the original intent,
Nope.
as written, that the federal government has any role in the education of our children, period.
What progressives do understand, but the actual voter that votes usually what Democrats don't understand, is I don't have a problem with the way you live in California. You want to live in California and you want to be as insane as you are. You can do that. Your own community can vote for that, and that's fine. I'm not going to pay for it, and don't force me to live
Yes.
that way. And that's unfortunately the problem. We have San Francisco values.
That's right.
In small towns that do not agree with those values at all.
And it's forced upon them. It's
yes,
forced upon them
because
using
it's federal.
the Office of Civil Rights, the Department of Education. And even worse, you guys remember, this was not a very covered issue. The Department of Education was using school-assisted lunch funding to force transgender bathrooms. Do you remember this? It was a lesson.
Yes.
Like they said, we are not going to give money for kids that need assistance for lunch if you don't have radical transgender policies.
Yes.
So what we've done is we've created this insane leverage that the Department of Education should not have over local municipalities and school districts. And the good news is Linda McMahon, I believe, will do 2 things. I could say just believe looking on the outside.
Yeah.
2 things concurrently. She wants to shut it down, but also fix as much as we can and reverse as much as we can. No more CRT for schools. We're going to not send any federal money after schools that are teaching DEI. And day one, there needs to be a massive push to the NCAA, the NCAA itself, as an official bodying organization, that the federal government will not send another dime of taxpayer dollars if men are competing in female sports. We will not tolerate that.
Absolutely.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot that we can do in the interim to help reverse some of this nonsense we've been living through.
Yeah.
But to answer the question, is Trump going to just shut down agencies? He does. The question is, can he? And
well, that's the other
that's
thing.
The constitutional question.
It's going to go to the Supreme Court.
Correct.
And the question there is, do the federal workers in the administration work for the president, or does the president work for them?
This is the fundamental question.
Right. I mean, and if you are part of the administration, that is a branch of the government that is separate but equal, and you have to have an executive that's running all
You're
that.
totally right. And thanks to President Trump with what he did in the first term, I think, Glenn, we finally have a Supreme Court that's willing to weigh in. And look, the West Virginia v. EPA case, other constitutional cases that we've seen in recent years are getting at the fundamental question of, wait a second, the authoring, the birth of the administrative state is illegitimate. The administrative state itself is an illegitimate experiment, that you cannot author regulation without Congress. In fact, said differently, that the entire premise that there is a fourth branch of government that is unelected, unknown, and unchecked is against our birth certificate. And so I think I think the Overton window has moved enough. Now, you wrote a book called Overton Window years ago. It was a great book growing up. I read it. It's finally moved enough where I think the American people can stomach it. And here's why I love what DOGE is doing. If they do nothing else than just live tweet the government waste that they find in real time, they will have done a great service to this country. I mean, don't underestimate the exposure of things.
I think we saw the Trump DOGE machine on Wednesday. You know, you can talk all you want, but when the president and Elon Musk and the rest of us have a leader that says, nope, stop this right now, the American people stood up and it stopped.
And here's what's amazing. Thanks to Elon Musk purchasing X and turning it into a more we didn't have to go through any of the mainstream media. We just did it. In fact, what the media is now doing, the media networks are now just reporting what they're reading on X. We can do that. We don't need to watch them for that.
I know.
They're literally just reading X and they're like, well, now breaking on X. Okay, I got that. I could do it in real time. I don't need your intermediary.
Yes.
And so it's a decentralization and a small d democratization of the flow of information.
I will tell you, when we were talking about Time Magazine and the Person of the Year, there's no other choice than Donald Trump. He is the guy he's going to change the whole world. And if he does what he said, he will be remembered as another Abraham Lincoln kind of guy, kind of figure.
I think you're right.
An anti-FDR / Wilson. However, the only other choice could have been Elon Musk.
I think that's right.
He did more to save our country by buying X than anything else.
I think you'll appreciate this. I said it when it happened, and now it's proven to be true. It's the most important transaction since the Louisiana Purchase.
Yeah.
And of scale and importance.
Yeah.
And I believe it was the cause that was set in motion that helped us save our civilization.
Yep.